Let's focus on the auto space in particular. We have Mahantesh Sabaran, Senior Analyst of Fortune Equity India with us on the show. Well, the idea of getting Mahantesh essentially was to talk about the auto sales numbers as they have shaped up, but there is also a story today that has developed on Hero MotoCorp. So kickstart the discussion with that. Mahantesh, good having you. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Let's first talk about Hero Moto. I mean, you probably have read about what's happened. A couple of the vendors of Hero MotoCorp are on strike. I believe 120 odd workers or slightly more than that. Question mark really is, do you see this situation snowballing into something akin to what happened to Maruti, or this is not as serious?
One has to really read into the developments. It doesn't appear to be as serious as what we have seen in the past with the case of Maruti. So I would be cautious, but I am not worried at this juncture. So to that extent, yeah, it's a development that needs to be watched. Normally what happens is strikes in India are cause of worry the moment it gets extended over a week. Not until then. So if it's a 2-3 day strike, probably it gets absorbed immediately. So we will wait for developments.
Anything that you've heard, Mahantesh, on the details of the strike? Anything that since you would also be tracking it closely?
No, we haven't heard anything apart from what we have seen in the media, so we haven't looked at that in terms of details. But it seems to be a mere agitation for wage increases. That is so, then the agitations can get quickly over with the management intervention. That is what we are hoping for. A management intervention would actually come in the next few days, and that should sort out the matter.
Okay, so essentially it's a 2-week strike, but you do believe that some resolution in the next few days. Okay, let's talk about the numbers as they came up, Mahantesh, and specifically wanted to get you if you indeed thought that there was a contra trend emerging, because I remember the discussion that we had in January or early February when we were talking about how the two-wheelers space is probably a subsector within the auto space which is doing extremely well. Never mind how four-wheelers are doing. And I believe from March sales, generally, the trend that we saw was that two-wheelers didn't do exceptionally good, but the four-wheeler volumes, while there were some constraints, the CV cycle did fairly okay for itself compared to what we've seen. Are you seeing a definitive trend emerging, or this was a bit of an aberration?
See, this seems to be a bit of an aberration. If you take Bajaj Auto, for example,
sure,
the two-wheeler sales have come in subdued, and that's partly because they have been doing partly what is called as inventory cleaning. The Bajaj's Pulsar NS is supposed to be launched now this month, so hopefully the volumes will rise back once again. So that's Bajaj for you. Then if you look at Hero MotoCorp, they too have been going through what is called as inventory cleanup. So we are not unduly worried. So March seems to be an aberration right now. And overall, what we can observe in the market is that the two-wheeler makers are not under unduly big pressure. If you take HMSI, for example, they have been seeing excellent growth in sales. So that tells us that overall the demand environment has not really weakened as much as one would have imagined after seeing these numbers of March. So March seems to be an aberration. Of course, we will have a slower growth rate going into the next year, not like the 15-16% that we have been seeing thus far. So we will have problems in terms of getting the same growth rate again in going into the next year. So that seems to be unlikely.
Okay, Mahantesh, then how would you change your recommendations around post these numbers? Also include the likes of an Ashok Leyland from the CV space. So four-wheelers, two-wheelers and the CV makers.
Okay, on the CV front, we think that the things are improving for the better. We will see a good growth in commercial vehicles, especially driven by the LCVs, and which in a way favors Ashok Leyland because they've recently launched their doors and it has not yet completed a full year of sales. So the sales momentum will gather pace as far as commercial vehicles are concerned. More a couple of things that we noticed is that freight rates are improving across the board, and that's partly got to do with the way railways improve the freight rates on certain commodities. So that's one buoyancy factor, and we may see interest rates actually falling, perhaps not now, perhaps 3 months, 6 months down the line. So that seems to augur well for commercial vehicles. In terms of four-wheelers, then we will see them growing quite better than what we have seen last year. Last year was a problematic year. FY12 has ended for the four-wheelers with just about sub 5% growth rate. We will see actually the growth rate bounce back because of the low base created, and we look to something like 12 or 13% growth as far as four-wheelers is concerned. So having said all this, in terms of recommendations, we noticed that some of the stocks have actually performed well. Ashok Leyland is what you have mentioned, and Ashok Leyland has had a good run in terms of stock performance, and it's closer to a price target of 34. So there's not much in terms of upside available on Ashok Leyland as of now. And as far as the two-wheelers are concerned, we maintain a sell call on Hero MotoCorp, and we have been on the negative side for Hero MotoCorp, and our reasons have to do with slowing sales for them, so slowing sales momentum for them, and rising inventory worries. So that's broadly what we look at. As far as other stocks are concerned, Bajaj remains a buy for us right now, and Tata Motor also remains a buy for us. So I think I've covered all.
Oh yes, you did. Mahantesh, before we thank you, I know we've had this discussion on autos, but if you have a formal coverage or just a view on what's happening with aviation, if at all, you would probably look to take exposure either to a Jet or a KFA, which over the last 2 days has shown a bit of a bounce back. I don't know if you can comment or no. This is only if you can.
I wouldn't comment on KFA. Jet is something that we do track, but then Jet stock price is actually far ahead of our recommended target price. And we have a hold call on Jet Airways, and the reasons have not to do with anything related to demand, but it's got to do with the cost of operations. Fuel cost is actually inching up, and it's surely going to hurt the airline's profitability going forward. Ticket prices are not rising in tandem with fuel prices, so that's the reason for our worry.